Hello everyone, my name is Shauna Ramsey and I'm a TitlePLUS consultant with LAWPRO. We're bringing you the third episode of the In Closing podcast today, where we'll be discussing topics important to the real estate community. Whether you're a real estate agent, real estate broker, lender, lawyer, investor, or homeowner, we'll hopefully provide you with some insightful content. Today's guest is Nadia Dalimonte. She is a manager with TitlePLUS Claims and Counsel with LAWPRO. Nadia manages both TitlePLUS claims as well as LAWPRO professional liability claims. And over the past 16 years, she's dealt with some very complex files, including class action suits and caution hearings. Nadia is not only dedicated to ensuring excellence within the TitlePLUS and LAWPRO claims, but she shares her knowledge and her expertise with the legal community through published articles in LawPRO's magazine. And she's a member of LawPRO's fraud response team, providing guidance and support to Ontario lawyers. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited to learn more about claims and hopefully hear some great stories. So let's go chat with Nadia. Hi, Nadia, and thank you so much for joining us today on the third episode of the In Closing podcast. So I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up claims manager with TitlePLUS and with LAWPRO?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today, Shauna. It's a real pleasure to be here and be part of this series. So I have been manager of TitlePLUS Claims since 2019. And before that, I handled TitlePLUS claims as well as professional liability claims against lawyers since 2008 as claims counsel.
Was that with LAWPRO or was that with another company?
Yes, that's been with LAWPRO.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about before LAWPRO? What did you do? What's your background?
So I articled with LawPro in 2006 and 7, and then I worked at another insurer for about a year, working on lawyers' professional liability excess insurance, as well as a variety of other types of insurance, including directors and officers' liability.
Wow, so you've had a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody is sort of wondering the same thing, as am I. Do you have some interesting stories for us? It's always great to hear about claims and how they play out.
Yes, absolutely. One of the stories that sticks in my mind as a recent really great claim was we had a policyholder report to us that they had tried to sell their property in November of 2021 after owning it for about 20 years with no issue. And as they were scheduled to close a day before closing of the sale of their property and the purchase of a new property, they had discovered that they had actually not obtained title to their property way back when they purchased.
Oh, no.
And that was obviously, to say, very stressful for them. Fortunately, because of it, the claim was covered under legal services coverage as well as the title coverage under the policy, we were able to confirm coverage and step right in right away to assist in starting to take steps to try to save both deals. So we were able to work with their lawyer as well as our LAWPRO preferred counsel that we retained to extend the closing of both the sale and the purchase of the new property, but only we were only able to secure a date to December 21st. So that was a really quick turnaround from the late November date where this all was discovered. Fortunately, we were able to secure that extension, and then our counsel pretty much lobbied the court to get the matter dealt with to obtain a vesting order to vest title in the property to the policyholders on an urgent basis. And we were able to close ready to close for the December 21st deadline. And so they were able to move into their home and basically, celebrate their holidays in their new place.
Wow. So that's a really quick turnaround time. So end of November to December 21st, you said, and you were able to get in front of a judge and get the vesting order that quickly.
Yeah, and it was very concerning at the time because it was still during the pandemic and there had been significant backlogs in court scheduling. So normally that would have been very difficult to achieve in such a short period of time, but just thank you to the work of our preferred counsel and our policyholders lawyer and our internal staff for working tirelessly to get that done.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that's a really big issue. I mean, that's something major.
Yeah.
Any other wild and wonderful stories?
Well, I did actually recently receive a claim with respect to a policyholder who was looking to install a pool in their backyard. So that's, pretty typical for many homeowners. When they started doing the digging, they discovered the remains of a body. And
Oh my God.
and so that would put a stop to the development of the backyard. And it turns out that the backyard had been a part of a private burial site many years ago. And the developers who created the subdivision that this property was a part of had, I guess, missed one of the remains of one of the people buried there. So they ended up obtaining an order to comply to do a burial investigation, and that means getting an archaeological site assessment done.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wow. So when they did the archaeological assessment, were they then able to determine that it was not a burial site and then it was cleared, or?
It was a burial site. So they just needed to remove the remains to the where a new burial site that had been created way back when the subdivision was created, and that cemetery was basically moved to a new location. So that was required.
Okay, so to get to this process now, you're dealing with a claim, and you're hopefully striving for an outcome that's satisfactory to the insured or the policyholder. So let's just go back to the beginning, maybe. So say we've got a homeowner who finds some sort of a problem, and they think maybe they've got coverage under their title insurance policy. But unless you're in the real estate industry, how much do you really know about what's covered and what's not and what you're supposed to do? What would be the first step? What should they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first step I always recommend is to submit the proof of loss. It doesn't matter if there's even a remote possibility that something might be covered. There is really no downside to heading to the TitlePLUS website. There is an online form there called the proof of loss. It requests some basic information, contact information, and information about the basic circumstances underlying the claim. And that's submitted. It immediately creates a claim file in our system, which permits for a claims professional to be assigned to the matter to review it, to ask any additional questions. And if it's even if it's not covered based on the circumstances that are described in the proof of loss, it may still be that there is the possibility to engage coverage based on some additional steps that are required. So, for example, we often get reports of a discovery of illegal work completed to a property without a permit where a permit was required. That in and of itself does not engage coverage under the policy. However, if an order to comply with respect to that work is issued, that would, generally speaking, be more likely to engage coverage. And a claims professional who is aware that the policyholder has discovered that illegal work is able to take those steps to guide the policyholder as to what steps to take to further that process along and see if that can engage coverage under the policy.
Wow. So it's really important then that they have guidance from the claims professional, because just from the way you're explaining it, there are so many different steps involved. And a lot of it is very legal, and they don't necessarily understand all of this. So, step number one, getting in contact with that claims professional, getting that proof of loss form in. So they've got this situation, and as you described, there may or may not be coverage under the policy, but the claims professional can sort of guide them so that they know how to, we say, engage or trigger coverage. So basically, the policy's got coverage, but under certain conditions are we able to deal with the claim. So that's very interesting. So, for example, let's say that someone hired a contractor. Maybe they're trying to renovate their house. Mm-hmm. And let's say that contractor has to tear down some drywall because they're doing some plumbing. Mm. When they do that, maybe they find something very strange behind the wall, and they figure there's no possible way that could have been inspected, because to them it just doesn't comply with the code. It can't be proper. It can't be legal. Mm-hmm. So if they found something like that and they're talking to one of our claims professionals, they've already submitted their proof of loss form. That's a scenario that you're talking about where that claims professional might guide them to make sure that they take the next proper steps so that they can work with the claims professional and have that claim resolved?
Yeah, that's really important because the next steps, generally speaking, might be to a homeowner on their own might think, well, I'm going to approach the city and I'm going to have an inspection done, and often with a view to obtaining an order to comply to engage the title insurance policy. And the important thing is, an order in and of itself is not necessarily engaging the title insurance policy. So before a homeowner takes that step, it's really valuable to talk to the claims professional and understand what the nature of the coverage that's available under the policy is first, before they approach the city, because once that order is issued, then it's much more difficult to backtrack from that. But at least if they're well informed by that discussion with the claims professional, who may also, depending on the circumstances, reach out to the building department themselves.
Oh.
Our team has extensive experience in communicating with building authorities and other governmental authorities in relation to basically compliance issues that arise with respect to title of a property. And so there really can be an ally to the homeowner in communicating with the building or other authority to obtain a clear understanding of what, if anything, is a problem with the property, where it's arising from, and what a clear solution to that could be.
That's great, because I would bet that a lot of people would be kind of nervous to call the city and ask them to come out and look at something, thinking, well, what happens if there isn't coverage, and then I'm going to be on the hook, which is exactly what you're sort of alluding to, right? Once you've got an order that's been issued, now you have to deal with it. So sort of going down that road then, when we're thinking about the TitlePLUS policy, for instance, I know that there can be exclusions and exceptions to coverage. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that and how that can affect the direction of the claim?
Yeah, generally it is helpful to really think about title insurance as pertaining to anything that might impact the title of the property, the ability to sell the property from a title perspective. So that would generally include specific title problems, as in registered title issues, or compliance issues in terms of that sort of starts to get into the building department issues or zoning issues, as well as encroachment issues that could be determined by an up-to-date survey, and arrears issues, sort of prior obligations by a prior owner of the property that could end up forming a lien against the property. So it's important to kind of think of title insurance from that perspective.
Something else I'm thinking about is, what about the type of property that you're dealing with? We know we're dealing with residential, but there can be your simple single family home, or you could have something such as a multi-unit.
Yes.
And I know, because I'm a consultant with TitlePLUS, that there are, for the lawyers who are ordering the policy on behalf of their clients, depending on the property type, there's different search requirements.
Yes.
Do they affect, or can they affect, the exclusions and exceptions that are in a policy?
Yeah, absolutely. The type of policy that is being applied for can and will have different underwriting requirements in terms of the searches that are required. And if the lawyer understands that a certain, for example, zoning coverage is not required, and then doesn't do the search in accordance with the underwriting requirements, that could result in an exception to the policy, meaning a limitation to the coverage available under the policy with respect to that particular risk. So it's really important to understand what the client is intending to use the property for, what kinds of coverages are needed by that client, and what the underwriting requirements are.
Okay, yeah, when you say important for the client to understand, I would assume that this is a conversation that you want to happen between the lawyer and their client.
Absolutely.
Because the lawyer's ordering the policy, but the clients are, of course, the ones who are getting the coverage, and so they really need to decide what they want and what they're willing to have excluded from the policy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Are there costs affiliated with doing these searches?
Absolutely, yep. Generally, there would be a cost, which is the underlying aim of title insurance, is to waive those costs or avoid the necessity of incurring those costs in favor of the risk being insured by title insurance. So it's important to have that discussion in terms of the costs, as well as weighing whether it's a risk that the client would like to be covered under title insurance versus incurring that cost and obtaining a clear answer to the search to understand what limitations there may be with respect to the property.
Okay, I think we've come a long way with title insurance. Actually, I do remember way back when it was very expensive for a homeowner to complete a purchase transaction because of all of these extra searches that they had to do.
Yes.
So now with title insurance, assuming some of those risks, that's definitely a cost savings for them. And so understanding how the claims can sort of come into play there because of these risks that have been assumed. It's really interesting just to see the exclusions and that. Okay, so I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier. You talked about, I think it was the first claims example that you were going through. You talked about obtaining a vesting order, and you said that the coverage was triggered through, I guess, partially the legal service coverage in a Title Plus policy.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that coverage?
Yeah, that's probably the coverage of greatest value under a Title Plus policy, in the sense that it's a very broad-based errors and omissions coverage for the benefit of our policyholders, being the homeowners and the lenders, where if there is an error or omission made in connection with a transaction insured under the policy, so that the purchase or the loan transaction, and that's made by their lawyer, the policyholder, the purchaser, or the lender is able to make a claim directly to Title Plus with respect to that to seek compensation for the actual loss. It's really a fabulous process in the sense that the policyholder is able to directly communicate with the insurer, does not have to start litigation necessarily. They always have the right to do what they see fit, but they really don't need to. It's as simple as submitting a proof of loss to Title Plus. We're able to then use that to investigate, confirm that there's an error or omission that's been made that causes an actual loss. And if that is confirmed, then we're able to deal with the policyholder directly to resolve the claim. It's a much quicker, less costly process as compared to the usual.
And do you find, just based on your experience, is the legal services coverage something that ends up being utilized fairly frequently in the claims department?
It is absolutely utilized. It's always considered in respect of every single claim, because consider that the other coverages under the policy are in a way a very narrow coverage. So the title, defects coverage, the compliance coverage, those are related to very specific risks, whereas the legal services coverage is very broad in relation to any error or omission made with respect to the real estate transaction. So it's a much, much broader coverage than would otherwise be the case if it weren't there.
And so I'm thinking back to the exceptions and exclusions now, relating that to the legal services coverage. Do they apply to the legal service coverage as well as the rest of the policy?
They do not apply in the same way. They are given consideration, especially with respect to the fact that any exceptions in a policy will be set out in the acknowledgement that is signed by the purchaser with respect to obtaining title insurance. And so, we consider it to be that the purchaser and lender is aware of the exceptions that are listed in the policy. However, it's not determinative of anything. So you could have an exception or an exclusion under the policy that pertains to the risk that is the subject of the claim, and still end up having the claim covered under legal services coverage.
Wow, so it really is quite broad.
Yes.
And so you were talking about the process for the insured or the homeowner, the policyholder. If they didn't have this coverage, or if they have any sort of claim that doesn't fall within policy coverage, what other options do they have? What other recourse do they have to sort of, get their money back, or if something's gone wrong and they need to get it fixed? How can they go about doing that?
Generally speaking, we always try to help our policyholders if something's not covered, but we see that it arises out of something like a vendor misrepresentation. We will suggest that they seek independent legal advice regarding the prospects of proceeding against the vendor for misrepresentation, which might grant them some compensation. Otherwise, it sort of depends on the nature of the risk. Some things that are the subject of an order to comply by a local building department authority, there really isn't anyone else that they can seek compensation from, and it's just part and parcel of the ownership risks of owning a property. And so that might be just a cost that they have to incur themselves. But we'll always try to look for and provide them with some courtesy recommendations if there is somewhere else that they can go.
This is something that comes up when I'm meeting with lawyers. It's a question that I get. What if, a law office is typically obtaining a TitlePLUS policy for their purchaser clients and their lender clients, and something went wrong, something went awry, and, the deal has closed and the homeowner is now unhappy about something. If they don't go back to their lawyer and talk to them and recognize that they may have coverage under their TitlePLUS policy, let's say instead they go see another lawyer, and that lawyer advises them to sue, commence an action. And they, of course, name everyone and anyone in that lawsuit, including their lawyer from the purchase transaction. What happens there? This is going to come into LAWPRO, and I know you're also dealing with LAWPRO claims. So what happens in that scenario?
Yes. So the lawyer that is insured under their LAWPRO policy will report in the normal course that claim against them. A claim file will be opened up under their professional liability policy. However, because they placed a title insurance policy a TitlePLUS policy with respect to the transaction that's the subject of the claim, LAWPRO will be in a position to waive the deductible and claims history levy surcharge that would otherwise apply with respect to that claim.
Oh, that's good. That's definitely good news for the lawyer who's insuring with TitlePLUS, because that's something that's out of their control, right? They can't force the client to come back to them. So it's good to know that they still have that protection.
Yes.
Either way.
Yes, it's in recognition of the fact that TitlePLUS, the policyholder could have made a claim directly under their TitlePLUS policy, which would, of course, have no implications on a lawyer in respect of a deductible or claims history levy surcharge. So the fact that the policyholder maybe didn't appreciate that they could have made that claim, but then instead, on the advice of another lawyer or just on their own initiative, decide to claim against the lawyer directly, that will not impact their, we treat it the same way in terms of waiving that the deductible and claims history levy surcharge simply doesn't apply.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we can pick your brain a little bit. I know that you have written several articles for LAWPRO publications, and that you have a lot of expertise in the area of, complex claims and fraud-related issues. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about what is hot topic right now in the claims department?
Yes, absolutely. Regrettably, we're seeing an uptick in fraud claims and across the board in respect of real estate matters. The newer trends are the vendor frauds, where we're seeing fraudsters impersonate being the owner of a property using often very sophisticated false identification, to then sell the property. This usually is with respect to properties that are rental properties, Airbnb properties, or just simply unoccupied properties where the owner is living in another country and not generally available to be on site at the property. The other area we're seeing a lot of is cybercrime. That's on the increase and it does often connect to real estate transactions where a cybercrime fraudster will hack into a system, monitor someone at the law firm's email account, whether it be a clerk or a lawyer, looking for real estate transactions where money is going to be changing hands and monitoring that. At some point during the course of the deal, the fraudster starts sending emails to the clerk or the lawyer at the law firm purporting to be the client or another party in the transaction, another lawyer. And eventually, when it's time to direct funds to payment for the client, the fraudster redirects those funds to a new account using the email account that they have hacked into. They ask the member of the law firm to redirect the funds to a new account at their request. The emails look amazingly genuine, authentic, and really very, very difficult to identify that there is any concerns. So the member of the law firm transfers the funds in accordance with the wire or other direction as, thought of being obtained from the client, but really it's the fraudster. Mm-hmm. And by the time the law firm realizes that it's the fraudster that directed the funds, they're gone. And so wow. In all of these situations, these are really on the rise, these types of frauds. And in all of these situations, there are a number of steps that can be taken by lawyers and their staff to try and prevent against these frauds. In addition to sort of the general red flags of fraud that we've known about for years, including, quick turnarounds of transactions. Yes. And payment to third parties of proceeds of a sale of a property or a mortgage, mm-hmm. Where those third parties seemingly have no connection to the transaction at issue. With respect to cybercrime in particular, calling the client to confirm any redirection of funds. And specifically, there's often going to be a contact information in the purported fraudster's email purporting to be the client. It's highly recommended that any member of the law firm contact the client at an independently verified telephone number to speak to the client and ensure that those directions are legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here.
Yes.
Right? So for sure, and of course they always have their client's contact information, a cell number or a work number or a home number.
Yes.
So just to call them to verify, did you send me this email? Where would you like these funds to go? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That first example that you gave us with the vendor fraud and the Airbnbs, that's really interesting too. So how, I'm just trying to understand exactly how that works. So somebody, they rent out an Airbnb and then pretend like they own it?
Yes, so they obtain fraudulent documentation to suggest that they are the person who owns the property, and they go to a lawyer. They purport to transfer the property, and the way they're selling the property is by way of the fact that their owner isn't there. The property is vacant, and so they're able to allow potential purchasers to visit the property, potential mortgage lenders to appraise the property.
Wow.
And that's how they're able to then secure and close an otherwise seemingly legitimate real estate deal.
These fraudsters just keep getting more and more creative.
Yes.
That's crazy. Well, for our listeners and our viewers out there, if they have questions or if they want to get in touch with you, is there a way for them to do it? Are you on social media, or how should they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I am always available at my direct line at LAWPRO 416-598-5851. I'm always happy to receive emails at Nadia, Nadia.Dalimonte, Dalimonte at LAWPRO, LAWPRO.ca. Always happy to hear from anyone. But ultimately, if anyone is hesitant to approach with a particular matter and they are a policyholder, I strongly encourage submit a proof of loss. And we're so happy to receive those and be able to help where we can. We're often finding situations where policyholders didn't think something was covered, and then it is. Right. And so, please, by all means, it's a very simple process. It doesn't take a lot of time. There's not a lot of information required, and it can be absolutely a positive outcome.
Oh, perfect. Okay, and that proof of loss form, that's on www.titleplus.ca?
Yes, that's right.
And is it under the resources section? I believe so, eh?
I believe under the homepage at titleplus.ca, there is a file a claim button.
Perfect.
And that can be selected to take you to the proof of loss.
Perfect. Very easy. Okay, well, thanks again so much for joining us, Nadia. Nadia, I appreciate it. You have so much information.
Thank you.